I want to share with you some chilling stories about people who dabbled in the world of spirit summoning, only to regret it instantly. These stories serve as cautionary tales, reminding us of the potential dangers of meddling with forces beyond our understanding. First, let's talk about the case of Roland Doe, also known as Robbie Mannheim. Now, in 1949, this 14-year-old boy from Maryland became the inspiration for William Peter Blatty's widely popular novel, The Exorcist. Roland had been experimenting with a Ouija board, trying to contact spirits when he allegedly became possessed by a malevolent entity. Now, the events that followed were nothing short of terrifying. Roland's family reported strange noises, furniture moving on its own, and unexplained events. The boy himself would go into trances, speaking in a very deep, frightening voice and exhibiting supernatural strength. Now, the Catholic Church eventually intervened, performing a series of exorcisms on Roland. The rituals were said to be so intense that they left the boy shaken and traumatized. In mid-1949, several newspaper articles printed anonymous reports of the alleged possession and exorcism. The source for these reports is thought to be the family's former pastor, Luther Miles Schultz, and according to one account, a total of 48 people witnessed this exorcism. According to author Thomas B. Allen, Father Walter was one of the last surviving eyewitnesses of the events and participated in the exorcism. Allen wrote that a diary kept by attending priest Father Raymond J. Bishop detailed the exorcism performed on Roland Doe. Now, speaking in 2013, Allen emphasized that definitive proof that the boy known only as Robbie was possessed by malevolent spirits is unattainable. Now, according to Allen, Halloran also expressed his skepticism about potential paranormal events before his death. When asked in an interview to make a statement verifying that the boy had actually been demonically possessed, Halloran responded saying, "No, I can't go on record. I never made an absolute statement about the things because I didn't feel I was qualified." This exorcism case inspired the novel, which in turn was adapted into the 1973 horror film of the same title, The Exorcist. The case also inspired the 2000 movie, Possessed, which is said to be closer to the story in Allen's book. A documentary was made of the case titled In the Grip of Evil. While the exact details of the events are still disputed, one thing is very clear. Roland's experimentation with spirit summoning had devastating consequences. Another case that comes to mind is that of the Perron family. In January of 1971, Roger and Carolyn Perron moved into a 14-room farmhouse in Rhode Island with their 5 daughters, only to discover that it was haunted by an evil spirit. It started very small. The family reported, all manners of paranormal activity, from unexplained noises and movements to physical attacks. Carolyn would notice that the broom went missing or seemed to move from one place to the next by itself. She could hear the sound of something scraping against the kettle in the kitchen when no one was even in there. She'd find small piles of dirt in the center of a freshly cleaned kitchen. Their daughters would also say that they would notice spirits around the house and that they seemed angry. As the haunting, intensified, the parents sought the help of paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, the Warrens, who were also involved in the Amityville horror case, believed that the spirit was the ghost of a witch who had been slaughtered on the property. The Warrens attempted to perform a cleansing ritual to rid the house of the malevolent entity, but however, the ritual was said to have awakened the spirit instead, making it even more aggressive. Now, the parents eventually fled the house, unable, of course, to cope with the intense paranormal activity. When the movie, The Conjuring, was released in 2013, it was met with critical acclaim. Critics everywhere praised it for its, all too very realistic portrayal of the demonic haunting of the innocent family in Rhode Island. Most viewers assumed that the movie was, nothing but the wild imagination of director James Wan. However, the true story of The Conjuring is actually rooted in the horrifying true experience of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed Warren was a World War II veteran and a former police officer who became a self-professed demonologist after studying the subject on his own. His wife Lorraine claimed to be a clairvoyant and medium who was capable of communicating with, the demons that Ed discovered. And in 1952, 1992, Ed and Lorraine founded the New England Society for Psychic Research, the oldest ghost hunting group in New England. They quickly gained notoriety as respected paranormal investigators after their initial investigation of the Amityville hauntings. Although the movies seem, over-dramatized and impossible to believe, the Warrens maintain that all of the events depicted actually transpired. Though Ed passed away sadly in 2006, Lorraine was a consultant on the film and claims that she didn't let the directors take any more dramatic license than was absolutely necessary. Last on my list to talk about is a well-documented case, is that of Latoya Ammons, now an American woman who, along with her 3 children, experienced a series of terrifying paranormal events after conducting a Ouija board seance in their Gary, Indiana home. Shortly after, she began to experience strange occurrences, including hearing strange noises, seeing shadowy figures, and feeling a very intense, unsettling presence. She said she heard footsteps in the basement and doors opening and closing on their own. Desperate for answers, Latoya turned to a Ouija board, hoping to communicate with whatever entity was responsible for the haunting. She gathered her family and conducted a seance, asking, the spirit to reveal itself. According to Latoya, the entity responded, identifying itself as Zozo, a malicious spirit known for its dark and very sinister nature. Latoya and her family were initially, skeptical, of course, but as, the entity began to manifest itself, they realized they had made a very grave mistake. The entity Zozo began to wreak havoc on the family, causing physical attacks, unexplained noises. The family reported finding strange symbols etched into the walls and experiencing very intense, unexplained cold spots throughout the house. As the haunting intensified, Latoya and her family became convinced that they had summoned a very evil spirit and was determined to destroy them. The family reached out to their doctor on April 19, 2012, when he visited the house during, the supposed haunting. He actually noted that their behavior was just delusional. Someone from his office contacted the police and the children were taken to the hospital. The DCS actually initially believed that the children were just performing for their mother. In other words, making it all up for attention. But that wasn't true, and it's even alleged that her 9-year-old son was seen walking backwards up the wall in the presence of a family case manager as well as a hospital nurse. So once that happened, it really debunked that whole theory that they were making it up. The nurse made a statement that said, he walked up the wall, flipped over, and just stood there. There's no way he could have done that. The police captain named Charles Austin said it was the strangest story he ever heard and admitted that at first he thought the family was making it up in an attempt to just make money. But after several visits to their home and interviews with witnesses, he simply said, "I am a believer." Campbell says she remembers telling her daughter, "We need help. We need to talk to someone who knows how to deal with it." And so desperate for help, they turned to a local paranormal investigator who confirmed that the entity was indeed Zozo, a spirit that's known for its very dark and malevolent nature. Now, the family eventually fled their home, unable to cope, of course, with the intense paranormal activity. Latoya has since spoken publicly about her experiences, warning others of the dangers of using Ouija boards and summoning spirits. In 2024, Netflix released a movie called The Deliverance, which is said to be based on this exact case. The movie begins with a title card that reads, "The following story is inspired by true events." So if this has intrigued you, go give that a watch. And in 2014, a man named Zach Bargains actually purchased the house for $35,000 and demolished it in January of 2016 after filming a documentary in it titled The Demon House, which was released in 2018. So that's another one you can go watch. Now, these stories illustrate the potential dangers of spirit summoning.
A Canadian nature lover's attempt to capture wildlife on camera backfired very terrifyingly after she inadvertently documented what appeared to be nude witches eating an animal carcass at night right by her house. She's like, I don't know what the heck was up with that. Her name is Cornea Stanhope, and she told Kennedy News of the spine-tingling sight. She's like, it really freaked us out. It's not something you see every day. The Powell River native had reportedly been riding one of her horses when she came across a dead deer in her garden. While most folks might have turned their nose up at the sight, the mother and her grandpa Bob, 76, decided to set up a camera to see if it would attract any critters, just for funsies. Well, the next day she checks in, and grandpa said he'd gotten nude people on camera, and she's like, No you didn't. BS. So we showed her. Well, these bone-chilling photos, taken just after sunset, showed two disheveled-looking women with long black hair obscuring their faces, squatting over the dead deer and appearing to dine on its remains. The wicked hungry pair are completely in the nude, minus what looks like loincloths over their nether regions, in what looks like found footage horror film-esque sort of photos. It looks like they have wigs on, said Stanhope. One looks like she has maybe blonde hair underneath. She's like, you can't really tell from the photos, but the hoof was brought right up to her mouth. Our poor witness said she wasn't sure if the so-called witches were kissing it, smelling, or eating it, but she was nevertheless sickened by the ritual, given the amount of bacteria that was probably on the decaying carcass. She said she was especially creeped out because the impromptu cuddling session occurred only 2 minutes from her house. She's like, I was concerned about them messing with my horses at night. Apparently the horses always get really spooked and unnerved around that area, and horses are pretty prone to being able to be in tune with things. She said, I thought they imagined stuff at first, so she didn't think anything of it, but now she believes them. Social media seemed concerned that the Canadian had witnessed witches, a local cult, or some other malevolent entity performing a demonic ritual. This is actually terrifying, commented one viewer. Well, another was like, that's an S-walker. They look humans, so you come up to them, and once you do, you're gone. And that's basically a walking demon from hell, said a third. If you hear screaming, stay inside, get a weapon, leave it alone. Some commenters suggested they were part of some, demonic cult, and I believe them. Back in 2021, Australia's ABC network was playing a routine news telecast when the anchor was taken by surprise as an unexpected satanic clip played during a switch of visuals. The anchor in question, Yvonne Young, was presenting a story about Queensland's proposal to make killing of police horses or dogs a criminal offense. Her narration was visually cut by a frame of 3 officers walking, then it pans back to her. Pretty typical, right? Well, a few seconds later, her narration once again gets interrupted by a change of visuals, but this time the network played a satanic ritual on screen during the live telecast. In that scene of just a few seconds, a man can be seen standing in a black robe. Another person is seen standing beside the robe-clad person, and then there's somebody seen sitting next to a keyboard. There's also an upside-down cross in one corner of the room. The whole clip of the satanic ritual played for only a couple of seconds, but was caught by another media house. Also, the man in the black robe can be heard saying, "Hail Satan." The producers realized the mistake and immediately cut the feed, bringing the anchor back on screen. Poor thing stayed silent for a couple of seconds, then quickly started introducing another story, kind of awkwardly. But can you blame her? Some folks believe the people from the visual were members of the Noosa Temple of Satan that at the time was protesting against Queensland's education department regarding religious instruction classes in schools. Meanwhile, the temple themselves retweeted the clip with the caption saying, "Satan works in mysterious ways. I don't want to know." American professional boxer Ryan Garcia recently alleged that Bohemian Grove, which is a place that exists north of San Francisco, is very much real, and it is an elite club where he reportedly witnessed some really heinous stuff we're not supposed to talk about on the internet. He claimed this during an X-Space hangout with Andrew Tate on March 5th earlier this year, and in the wake of his allegations, a video went viral that showed an alleged satanic ritual performed at Bohemian Grove. The video was reportedly leaked back in the year 2000 by prominent conspiracy theorist and radio show host Alex Jones, who allegedly infiltrated the Bohemian Grove around the same time after being denied entry multiple times. Well, the visual is kind of hazy, audio's a little unclear, some of the ritual was ongoing with fireworks, cloaked priests, and there's a lot of speculation about alleged satanic ceremonies that have emerged. Additionally, Alex Jones's interview on the Joe Rogan Experience has also gone viral, where he claims that when he trespassed the Grove 2 decades back, he saw effigies being burnt in front of a large owl shrine, further fueling the alleged satanic ritual speculation. While the Bohemian Club website refutes the claims of secret and illegal affairs going on, or heck even the existence of things, a 2011 article in the Washington Post revealed that the members of the Manhattan Project met there regularly back in the 1940s, and that should alarm you. A mysterious snippet of footage showing people wearing black robes making a human sacrifice in front of a Shiva statue at the CERN, or European Organization for Nuclear Research campus, was posted on YouTube back in 2016 to a lot of debate. Well, a lot of folks were like, it's fake, it's staged. It's been confirmed that the video was indeed filmed at the CERN campus, and these cloaked figures are allegedly CERN researchers performing a satanic human sacrifice at the Large Hadron Collider. So CERN is a highly protected, restricted area with a lot of security gates and CCTV cameras. Another mysterious piece of information is the man who was filming the incident. Despite him freaking out seeing the alleged sacrifice, his reflection on the window pane shows he was wearing the same cloak as everybody else. Creepy. Finally for today, Python cowboy Mike Kimmel appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast on August 11th of last year to share a crazy story about stumbling across what looked to be the aftermath of a ritual deep in the Everglades. So he was hunting invasive pythons at the time. And by the way, if you scroll his Instagram long enough, you're gonna see videos of him rescuing raccoons, saving law-abiding alligators from python death grips. He knows what he's talking about. Some of his posts border on full-blown PDA for his hunting dogs. He also shares pictures from guided hunts with clients. He's the real deal. However, his strangest post of all is about the time he came across some peculiar litter around an infamous abandoned Aerojet rocket test facility one night in April of 2019. Kimmel has spent countless hours chasing invasives around this area of the Everglades, and he had to investigate. First, he says he spotted dolls that had their eyes gored out and inverted crosses across their forehead. Then it turned into Latin graffiti sprayed in red paint and a wooden cross stuck in a giant rock pile. The situation really devolved when he climbed up the rock pile and came across a small scarlet snake wrapped around the neck of yet another doll. This snake was still alive, and it was leaking redness from its rear end. Now, according to him, it's rare to find a snake in this area, and it's really weird that it's wrapped around the doll, and also the whole redness thing. The snake's maybe a foot long. It's tiny. Kimmel said he's caught thousands of snakes in his life. None of them have ever been leaking redness out of their rear like that. By this point, he's a little freaked out. Dolls with no eyeballs and a little graffiti is one thing, but a live animal in anguish takes this beyond any kind of silly prank. He said as he was leaving that rock pile, there was a huge spray-painted phrase on the asphalt, maybe 50 feet long, and it was translated to, "He's watching, turn around, run, hide." So he moved further into the main building of the complex, and the more he investigated, the weirder it got. He found a 50-foot spray-painted pentagram with a three-legged chair in the middle, with a big red stain, like something was sacrificed there. On the walls there were more Latin sayings with upside-down crosses. In another room there was a little nightgown, and he thinks it was spray-painted red, but it was supposed to look like it was covered in bad fluids. There was a lot of phrases on the wall that were talking about sacrificing a human to the devil, and in one of the rooms that he couldn't gain access to, he could tell through a busted-out window that there was a sleeping bag in there, something stuffed inside, and that's when he was like, I'm out of here. Later on, when he got home, he started researching the facility. The man who built it was named Marvel Jack Whiteside Parsons, a Caltech rocket scientist and the co-founder, obviously. He was a known Thelemite occultist, meaning he practiced the Thelema spiritual philosophy and new religion founded in the early 1900s. Now, this isn't directly linked to Satanism, but he was known to conduct rituals summoning goddesses with Scientology founder Ron Hubbard. Enough said.
The Annalise Michelle case. Now, this case is one of the most controversial cases in modern history. Annalise was a German woman born in 1952 who underwent 67 Catholic exorcism rites over a period of 9 months and during the year before her demise. She passed due to malnutrition, for which her parents and priests were convicted of negligent homicide. Now, she was actually diagnosed with epileptic psychosis and had a history of psychiatric treatment that proved ineffective. By the time that she was 20, she had become intolerant of various religious objects and began to hear voices. Her condition worsened despite medication, and she became despondent, also displaying other symptoms for which she took medication as well. Now, after taking psychiatric medications for 5 years that failed to actually improve her symptoms, Michelle and her family became convinced she was possessed by a demon. As a result, her family appealed to the Catholic Church for an exorcism. While rejected at first, 2 priests got permission from the local bishop in 1975. Now, the priests began performing exorcisms and the family stopped consulting doctors. They believed she was being possessed by 6 different demons, with one of them actually being Lucifer. Michelle stopped eating food as she thought starving herself would rid herself of the demons that had taken over her body, and passed away on July 1st, 1976 from malnutrition and exhaustion resulting from the neglect of her medical condition after the crazy excessive 67 exorcism sessions. Now, she weighed only 68 pounds and was only 23 years old. The entire process was filmed. The footage is chilling. Annalise sits quietly before letting out a sudden blood-curdling scream and vomiting a thick black substance. Her face appears to morph, her eyes losing their whites entirely. At one point, a mirror in the room shatters on its own, cutting her cheek, and she laughs, smearing the liquid across her face, whispering, "Now I am whole." The audio you can listen to yourself. It's quite scary. You can't make out everything she says. It's really hard to dissect it, but it's worth listening to if it's piqued your interest. Now, the church immediately confiscated the tapes, of course. A local reporter claimed to have seen a copy and described a section where Annalise speaks in a deceased relative's voice, complete with matching tone and cadence. Now, that journalist disappeared 3 months later. The footage remains locked in a church vault in Madrid with no known copies confirmed to exist, though many claim to have seen snippets in lost VHS tapes passed around in the 90s. The case, of course, sparked controversy and highlighted the need for careful consideration when dealing with cases of apparent demonic possession, particularly when a medical diagnosis exists. The 1973 Tanacu exorcism tapes. Now, in the secluded village of Tanacu, Romania, a 23-year-old woman named Marcia Irina Cornisi arrived at the Tanacu monastery in 2005, actually seeking peace. Now, diagnosed with schizophrenia, she was placed under the care of a small group of nuns and a priest named Daniel Pedro Cornago. So, over time, they actually began to believe that she was possessed. What followed was a brutal exorcism that lasted days. Now, Father Cornaju, he basically thought that it was not just a mental illness, but rather that Cornisi was possessed by Satan. He would later claim that you can't take the devil out of people with pills and that an exorcism was necessary. In order to restrain her from violent movements, including those causing her to hit herself, the nuns bound her hands and feet and locked her in her room as they participated in the exorcism, basically commemorating the ascension of Jesus. Now, a few days later, they chained her to a cross with her arms stretched and carried her into the church so that they could anoint her. Now, according to Sister Nicoletta, Cornisi had been restrained in the same manner that others who were demonically possessed were. Sister Nicoletta stated that, had Cornisi not been restrained, she could have either unalived herself or unalived someone else. Now, with regard to Cornisi, Sister Nicoletta also stated that Irina knew that she was possessed by evil spirits because she was begging us to tie her up and help her. Her wrists and forehead were then anointed with holy oil, and she was kept in the church for 3 days. They put a towel into her mouth to stop her from cursing and prayed to cast out the devil as they wet her lips with holy water. Footage surfaced, never meant to be released, captured by a journalist who infiltrated the monastery. It shows Cornisi strapped to a makeshift crucifix, her mouth gagged, and her body convulsing violently. She screams not in words, but in very animalistic growls that echo off the monastery walls. Her final hours were spent without food and water, and she ultimately passed of dehydration and exhaustion. Now, Romanian authorities buried the footage, citing national disgrace, but fragments leaked years later on underground forums showing glimpses of her final hours. Shocking and raw, her eyes wild with either illness or something far worse. This case was widely publicized in the Romanian media, and following a lengthy trial, the priest was sentenced on appeal to 7 years, one nun to 6 years and the other 3 nuns to 5 years. However, many of the residents there, including Cornisi's brother, believed her to have suffered from demonic possession. The coroner maintained that the nun's cause of passing was actually due to an overdose of adrenaline given in the ambulance. Louis' exorcism. In the 1940s, a former priest from Missouri attempted to perform a clandestine exorcism in the basement of a private residence in St. Louis. The subject was a teenage boy who reportedly displayed erratic behavior, including writing in Latin despite never studying it, and exhibiting knowledge of private family details he couldn't have known. This St. Louis exorcism, a real-life event that reportedly inspired William Peter Blatty's novel The Exorcist, occurred in 1949 in St. Louis, Missouri, involving the boy Robbie Hunkler, now who allegedly exhibited signs of demonic possession. The event involved multiple exorcisms, including, one at the Alexanian Brothers Hospital. Robbie Hunkler and his mother actually moved to St. Louis, where they stayed with relatives in Belle Noire. The boy reportedly began exhibiting strange behaviors, including physical manifestations and speaking in a very deep, guttural voice. The family contacted a priest at St. Louis University, who in turn contacted Father William Bowdern, an associate of the university's spiritual center. Bowdern, with permission from the St. Louis Archbishop, performed a series of exorcism rituals. Now, the rituals took place at the boy's residence and basically eventually the brothers' hospital. Now, during the rituals, the boy reportedly exhibited various signs of possession, including the bed shaking, objects flying, and speaking in a strange voice. A camera was set up to record the process for documentation purposes. What it captured was beyond disturbing. At 3:14 a.m. on the second night, the boy broke free from his restraints. The tape, viewed by only a handful of people, reportedly shows his body just twisting in impossible angles and a voice deep and layered, unlike any human vocal range, speaking directly into the lens saying, "He belongs to me." Shortly after, the basement flooded inexplicably. The priest abandoned the church and was later found in a psychiatric hospital, scribbling symbols on the walls. The footage was classified as sacred and never to be viewed by the public, but stills from the tape were allegedly leaked and passed around the dark web under the file name STLE Exorcism 92. Lastly, we have the case of Clara Germaine Sely. Now, she is said to have been possessed when she was a 16-year-old girl at St. Michael's Mission in Natal, South Africa. She was an orphan of African origin and was baptized as an infant. At the age of 16, the girl allegedly made a pact with Satan, and this is said to be the cause of her demonic possession. Clara later revealed this information to her confessor, Father Arne Cheyenne. Now, in an account written by a nun, Clara was said to be able to speak languages of which she had no previous knowledge. This fact was also witnessed by others who recorded that she understood Polish, German, French, Norwegian, and all other languages. Now, the nun reported that Clara demonstrated clairvoyance by revealing the most intimate secrets and transgressions of people with whom she had no contact. Moreover, Clara could not bear the presence of blessed objects and seemed imbued with extraordinary strength and ferocity. Now, often hurling nuns even at the, in the convent rooms and kind of just attacking them. Now, the nun reported that the girl's cries had a savage bestiality that astonished those around her. For 6 years, Clara lived in a demonic possession-free life. Now, she felt ashamed for her behavior, asking for forgiveness while seeking humble pursuits. She passed away in 1912 from heart failure at the young age of 22. However, history had lost track of and forgotten Clara in some versions of her story.
Number 5 on this list is the Panama Seven. The following story happened only a few years ago and is a horrifying tale where 7 people in Panama were found dead from a terrifying ritual. The BBC writes 10 people have been arrested on suspicion of murder. The suspects and all victims were thought to belong to the Nagobi indigenous community. The grave was discovered after 3 villagers escaped and made their way to a local hospital last weekend, prosecutor Rafael Baloy said. They then alerted authorities about several families being held by an indigenous-run sect. On Wednesday, police raided the community located in a jungle region in northwest Panama, some 250 kilometers from the capital Panama City. They were performing a ritual inside the structure. In that ritual, there were people being held against their will, being mistreated, said Mr. Balois. All of these rites were aimed at killing them if they didn't repent their sins. Inside the makeshift church, officers found a naked woman, machetes, knives, and a ritually sacrificed goat, Mr. Balois said. The site was controlled by a religious sect called the New Light of God, believed to have been operating in the region for about 3 months. According to Mr. Balois, the kidnapping and torture started last Saturday after one of the members claimed to have received a message from God. The victims were then kidnapped from their homes, beaten, and killed. So let me ask you guys, does that sound like something that God would tell you to do? Gather up a bunch of people, hold them against their will, and torture and kill them? To me, if any sort of entity was to tell you to do something like that, then that would be a demon or maybe the devil. Maybe that demonic entity would portray themselves as God or someone else, but I don't know what type of God would do something like this. To be completely honest, folks, I'm really not a religious person, so when I hear something like this, I believe that this was the work of people who were extremely sick or misguided. But I can guarantee to them, they probably really felt like they were acting as the vessel for some higher being. I think in this instance though, they really did misjudge who that higher being was. This happened literally back in 2020 as well, guys, so really not that long ago. My heart truly does go out to the people that were killed and to the families of those who were taken way too soon. Number 4 on this list is The Devil Made Me Do It. This famous Ed and Lorraine case may be the best example of when someone tried to claim a demonic possession led to a crime. The case is centered around a young man named Arne Cheyenne Johnson and the man that he murdered, a 40-year-old named Alan Bono. Mental Floss says there was no question that Johnson killed Bono. However, his defense attorney, 33-year-old Martin Minella, planned to argue that the 19-year-old was not guilty by virtue of demonic possession. Ahead of the trial, Minella pled his case through the media, giving interviews to major press outlets. The courts have dealt with the existence of God, and now they'll be asked to deal with the existence of the demonic spirit, Minella told People. The day after Johnson was arrested, Lorraine Warren called the Brookfield police and blamed the killing on a demon. Johnson didn't actually say the devil made him do it, he only claimed that he didn't remember stabbing Bono. However, according to the testimony of an officer on the scene, Johnson did tell the police, "I think I hurt someone." Now, this defense didn't actually work out for Johnson. He was inevitably convicted of first-degree manslaughter and sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. However, he didn't serve nearly that many and was released after less than 5 years for being a really good prisoner. In my opinion, I kind of doubt that this guy was actually under the influence of a demonic possession, and clearly the jury, they felt the same way. That being said though, he did seem pretty committed to that story during the trial, so I suppose it's something to consider. Number 3 on this list is Manuel Vela. Several years ago, Manuel Vela killed his pregnant girlfriend. It was a brutal murder and an incident which climaxed in a police chase where he was finally captured. Many people obviously asked the question, why? And the answer may shock you. The Mystique says Vela told the interviewers that the murder of his girlfriend and her child were part of a religious and political statement. He was possibly trying to enlighten the crowd of his opinion on pro-life ideologies. However, it seemed like his motivation behind the murders wasn't just politically backed. He went on to say how he is the Antichrist and the voices in his head guided him on what to do. Many of his analogies were akin to things that have happened in the history of Christianity. Vela literally believed that he was the Antichrist, guys. That sounds like a pretty textbook example of a demonic possession to me. At this point, Vela's competency to stand trial was in question and a hearing needed to be done. Manuel never actually made it to the hearing though, because in January 2017, authorities found him dead in his cell. He had taken his own life. Number 2 on this list is the Son of Sam. The Son of Sam was a killer that caused one of the biggest citywide police investigations ever. Ranker says New York City during the summer of 1976 was a hotbed of anger, frustration, and fear, and David Berkowitz, aka the Son of Sam, didn't help the matter by killing 6 people and wounding 7 others in the span of 1 year. After his arrest, Berkowitz told police that he was under the control of a demon named Harvey who inhabited his neighbor's dog and implored him to kill people. Once, during a 3-month break from his murder spree, Berkowitz wrote the New York Post to say, "I am still here like a spirit roaming the night, thirsty, hungry, seldom stopping to rest." After being incarcerated, Berkowitz received a sentence of 365 years in prison, by the way. He became a born-again Christian, but he still believes that the devil and God are fighting for possession of his soul. No wonder this guy got 365 years. Not only did he kill 6 people, but to write to the Times saying that he's still thirsty and hungry, yeah, this is clearly a man that needs to be kept behind bars for literally ever. Once again, I want to stress the fact here that I'm not a religious man personally. When I hear a story like this, I believe that it's far more likely that the Son of Sam was just truly mentally unstable and probably in need of some very serious help. He truly believed though that a demon had called upon him and was using his body as a vessel for evil. We may never know what truly caused him to do this, but at least he's locked up for good and won't be doing it again anytime soon. And finally, number 1 on this list is Michael Taylor. Several decades ago, Taylor was apparently possessed by a horrible demon, and this time it really got the better of him. Ranker says in 1974, Michael Taylor was just a simple butcher living in Ossett, England, who was suddenly overcome by an evil spirit. He had an exorcism performed on October 5th and 6th of 1974, and while it went okay, the priests weren't able to expel all of the demons. According to Bill Ellis, an authority on folklore and the occult in contemporary culture, in an all-night ceremony, the exorcists believed that they had invoked and cast out at least 40 demons, including those of incest, bestiality, blasphemy, and lewdness. At the end, exhausted, they allowed Taylor to go home, although they felt that at least 3 demons, insanity, murder, and violence, were still left in him. So, you know, kind of the big 3. After he returned home, Taylor immediately murdered his wife by ripping out her eyes and tongue and then tearing off most of the skin from her face, finally strangling their pet poodle. Police found Taylor standing in the street naked and covered in blood, shouting, "It is the blood of Satan." This is truly one of the most graphic crimes I've ever read about, honestly. Like, to think that this happened in real life is extremely scary. Also, if he was possessed by some type of demon, like, what demon was this and how do we all avoid this? I feel like this is pretty pertinent information considering what Taylor ended up doing. Number 5 on this list is the closet game. This is a game where you can make it so that your closet is forever haunted by a demon, because apparently this is desirable to some people. In fact, the entire point of the game is to simply summon a demon. It's very simple and you won't need a whole lot of things to make it work. First things first, you're gonna need a closet, and this is where you're gonna be summoning your demon and where it's going to stay for the rest of your life, assuming that you perform the ritual properly. You are also going to need a box of matches. Get your matches and head to the closet. Now you need to make sure that all the light in that room that your closet is located in is off. Having any light around will interrupt the ritual and it won't work. Get inside your closet and close the door. You should be in complete darkness at this point. Take one of your matches and hold it up to your face. Don't light it yet, just have your match there and ready to go for when you do need it. Now say the following words: "Show me the light or leave me in darkness." Those are the words, and once you say those, you should begin to notice a serious presence in your environment. You will start to hear whispers as if somebody is standing behind you and whispering in your ear. The second that you hear that, and this is very important, you have to light your match immediately. It's said that if you don't light it quickly enough or at the exact right moment, then the demon that you have just summoned to your closet will grab you from behind and pull you back into the darkness. Now, assuming that you did light your match okay and you haven't been pulled straight back to hell, then the whispers should stop and now you can safely exit your closet. However, now your closet is literally forever haunted by that demon. So yeah, this is gonna go on the should never perform list for me, because literally best case scenario is that you survive the ritual and now you just have to forever fear going and getting clothes from your closet. Number 4 on this list is the 11-mile game. This game is actually done in your car or on your motorcycle, so a little change from our standard get in a room and turn the lights off sort of ritual. That being said though, it does have to be performed at night and you also have to be alone in your vehicle. You're gonna have to take your car out into the woods, drive down the wooded roads and keep your mind open. Eventually you will come upon a road and you're gonna have to recognize that this is the 11-mile road. There isn't going to be any bright flashing neon signs, so that's where your intuition has to come into play. Once you turn down the 11-mile road, there is no going back until you finish it. So ready yourself and then begin your drive. You have to make sure that your radio is off, same with your phone, and also have all your doors and your windows shut. As you're driving, things will begin to happen. The first mile, there's nothing. It's just a standard road. But by the time you get to the 4th mile, you may start to hear voices or notice movements in the darkness. Keep your eyes on the road and keep driving. By the 8th mile, your headlights will be flickering. The voices will be incredibly loud, maybe even from your back seat. You may see bright lights from the forest. Just keep your eyes on the road and keep driving. By the 10th mile, don't look in the mirror, don't look in the back seat. Your car may even stall and stop, but you can't panic. Quickly turn it off and then turn it back on and keep driving, because you can't stay in one place for very long. Last mile is the 11th mile, and your car will assuredly stall. You just have to tune everything out. Voices, feelings, sensations. Ignore everything. Close your eyes if you have to. Plug your ears. Whatever you have to do so that you don't look at anything. Just get your car operating again and keep driving. If you make it through the 11th mile, then you will reach a dead end in the road, and here is where you can finally stop. At this point, you've just made it through the 11-mile road and you are granted with one wish that will manifest something physical inside your car. This ritual is only extremely dangerous if your focus shifts for any moment. If you trust your ability to stay super calm under the type of demonic pressure you would be experiencing from the 11th mile, then that's up to you. But just know that if you do stop, or you do look at something, then the consequences could be very dire. Number 3 on this list is the gambler's game. Now honestly guys, this is actually one that I would be very interested in as somebody who likes to gamble. This one kind of sounds fun. However, you gotta know your life will be on the line, so probably not the best idea. How it works is super simple. You will need a deck of cards, a quiet room, a table, and 2 chairs. You want to set the table up so that there's nothing on it except for the pack of cards and chairs facing across from one another. Sit in your chair and look at the empty one across the table from you. Open up your cards and shuffle them thoroughly. Do not try to cheat. You have to play fair. At the end of the day, you are gambling here. Now the game that you actually play is up to you, so you might have a slight advantage there. However, it's said that the gambler, who you're going to play with, prefers blackjack and may even take it easy on you if that's the game you choose. Pick the game and deal out the cards to yourself and to the empty seat. Now very simply, look across at your invisible partner and say, let's play. If the gambler feels like playing, then you should feel a chill in the air, like a strong breeze. That means that he's across the table from you now and you can continue. You won't be able to see him, he will still be invisible. Also, if you don't feel a chill in the air, don't bother continuing, there won't be anybody there. Once he's there though and accepted to play with you, the wager from your end is your life. Proceed by playing the game as you would. You'll have to move his hand for him, but once again, don't cheat. You will die if you do. If the game progresses and you lose, then the gambler won't waste any time at all. You will be killed on the spot. If the game progresses though and you win, and this is the good part, you can now take the top card off the deck and cut open your index finger on one hand. Once you've drawn blood, then congratulations, that hand is now your lucky hand. If you head to a casino and you play blackjack and you pick up the cards with that hand, you will turn a made hand. If you throw a die, same deal, they will land on your number. Basically now you have exceptional gambling luck for the rest of your life, and you could in turn become extremely rich. You still shouldn't do this though, because you are betting your life to begin with, and you could very easily lose to a professional demon gambler. But the reward at the end is amazing. Now all this could just be a major hoax on the internet. Like if you think about it, he's invisible the whole time and you just have to move his cards. Like that's basically just solitaire. So I'm not totally sure, but we might never know, because I personally do not want to risk my life and test the theory. Number 2 on this list is the Dry Bones Ritual. This game is super similar to the Midnight Man game, if you've ever heard of that one. The idea is pretty simple. Hide and seek with a demon with potentially life or death stakes. That, in my opinion, doesn't sound so great. However, if you win, then you do get something pretty special. It's said that if you're able to win this hide and seek game, then the demon Dry Bones will grant you one wish of your choosing, so you could stand to gain quite a bit. If you're gonna do this, then it has to be done at exactly 12:01 a.m. You have to make sure that every door in your home is firmly locked. This goes for the windows as well. All electronics, lights, radios, anything that is typically plugged in, that has to be turned off as well. Once this is done, focus your mind on the wish that you want. It has to be something realistic, because it's going to show up outside your door when the game is over if you win. Once you've done that and made it clear in your brain, light a match. If this match doesn't burn out in less than 15 seconds, so it has to stay lit for 15 seconds, then Dry Bones has decided that it will play with you tonight. Now, lie on the ground and say, I am aware of your presence, and I welcome you into my home, but not my body. Come now. If you hear a deep echoing moan, then it is on its way. It's at this point that you would better run and you better hide, and you gotta make sure that it's good, because you have to stay hidden until 3 a.m. that same morning. If you are capable of lasting until 3, then come out and say, thank you for playing, but please leave now, you are no longer welcome. You have then won the game, and you can now go find your wish granted outside of your home. If it finds you in that 3 hours though, no one actually knows what happens. You might die, you might be petrified, maybe something nice even happens, I'm not sure. Although I certainly would not want to be the person to find out. Number 1 on this list is Blue Baby Blue. Now Blue Baby Blue is very similar to Bloody Mary, except now you'll be summoning a demon baby, so that's something, I guess. As with many of these rituals, this will be taking place in a dark room with a mirror. Now the dark room actually has to be a bathroom, because you're gonna need access to a toilet. If you don't have a toilet, then you're probably gonna die. Here's what you have to do. Go into your bathroom and lock the door. Turn all the lights out so that you should be in complete darkness. darkness. Now you will need just a slight bit of light to see some sort of reflection in the mirror, so either wait for your eyes to adjust or I guess bring in a very small candle with you. Now stick out both of your hands as if you were holding something in front of you. Look into the mirror and repeat this 13 times. Baby blue, blue baby. That's 1. Do that 13 times without fail, which is actually kind of hard. Baby blue, blue baby, baby blue, blue baby. Yeah, that would be difficult. But if you make a mistake and trip up on your words, then it said that it won't work. So you're gonna have to start again if you do that. If you do make it through that part of the ritual, then in your outstretched arms, you should feel a weight has just formed. You won't be able to see it, but you will very clearly feel that you are now holding a demon baby. Now you have to make sure that that thing is far away from you, because if it's close enough, then it's gonna scratch, it's gonna claw, it's gonna rip out your hair. It's not a pleasant baby. After a little while of feeling the weight in your arms and hopefully it not clawing the crap out of you, you're gonna start to hear crying coming from inside your head. This is your cue to take the baby, drop that thing in the toilet, and flush it out of here. It's said that if you don't do that part fast enough, kind of similarly to our previous example with the matches, then you're gonna be in trouble. If you wait a little bit too long, then a hideous looking woman is gonna appear in the mirror. She's gonna stare straight at you and yell, "Give me back my baby." That scream is said to be so loud that it will break the glass of the mirror, and then she will step straight into your bathroom and murder you. Definitely not a good freaking time, if you ask me. Number 5 on this list is Tsuji-Ura. Tsuji-Ura is a Japanese fortune-telling ritual that's goal is to tell the user their future. To do this, you're gonna need to summon what many people believe is an undead spirit or a demon, and whenever you do that, there are always some risks involved. You're gonna need a few things to perform this ritual. A comb, something to cover your face with, not just a mask, but your entire face has to be covered, and to be at a crossroads that won't be busy. Head to the crossroads with your comb and your face covering. You'll want to get there around 11:50 at night. When the clock hits midnight, take your comb and stroke the teeth of it so that it makes some noise. Then say the following words: Tsuji-Ura, Tsuji-Ura, grant me a true response. Now wait, it may take a little while, so you have to be patient. If nobody approaches the crossroads or someone you know approaches the crossroads, then sadly the ritual did not work and you can go home. If a stranger approaches though, then it did work, and you have just summoned an undead spirit. Once you see them in the distance, immediately throw your face covering on. When you feel their presence beside you, kindly ask them to tell you your fortune. They should do so, and you will receive an insight into what is to come. The thing about fortunes though is that a lot of times you're not gonna like what you hear. We always have these lofty expectations that assume life will always be better than it is right now. Well, what if you knew for certain that it's actually gonna be worse and there isn't anything that you can do about it? That's one of the reasons why you shouldn't do this ritual, because knowing what comes can take the meaning out of life. This is also a demonic ritual where you're summoning an undead spirit. It doesn't always go the way that you want it to, and on occasion people have reported that the spirit that they summoned wasn't the one that they expected. Similar to how demons can hijack Ouija board experiences, they could do the exact same thing here. Number 4 on this list is the concentration ritual. This is a pretty strange one where you'll actually learn how you're going to die. If you want to do this, then you won't be able to do it by yourself. You're gonna need another person to help you. Close your eyes and clear your mind. Have your friends stand behind you and lightly pound your back as they begin the concentration chant. Now for this video, I'm not going to go through the entire chant because it's actually really long, but to sum it up, there are 5 verses that act as a way of hypnotizing you and sending your spirit away from your body. When it finishes, your friend from behind you will give you a light push that should make you stumble and fall forward. As you're regaining your balance, open your eyes and you should see a color. The color that you see determines how you're gonna die. For instance, red means that somebody's gonna stab you. White means that you will die of old age and you'll go to heaven, whereas black means that you'll die of old age and go to hell. The thing about this game is that you'll never know when this is going to happen to you. So you may learn that you're gonna die from being stabbed, but never know when or by who. So for the rest of your life, you will be living in constant paranoia of somebody stabbing you. I think when it comes to death, ignorance truly is bliss, and learning about how you can die can only ever make your life worse right now. Number 3 on this list is the elevator game. The elevator game is a demonic ritual of sorts that is supposed to grant you the ability to enter another world. This other world is considered by most to be a demon realm. The game itself started in Korea, but has slowly gained more intrigue across the world from people looking to potentially enter hell. To do this, you'll need an elevator in a building that's at least 10 stories tall. The building that you're in should ideally be as empty as possible. Get in your elevator and then proceed to these following floors in order. First, you go to the 4th floor, then you descend to the 2nd floor. Then up to the 6th, and then back down to the 2nd, and then go all the way up to the 10th floor, and then finally back down to the 5th. Now at the 5th floor is when things get interesting. People have done this and have reported having an encounter with a woman. This woman looks normal on the outside, but I promise you that she isn't to be trusted. She will enter the elevator from the 5th floor and do anything she can to gain your attention. This could come in the form of flattery, or she may even antagonize you, but whatever you do, do not pay her any mind at all. There doesn't seem to be a conclusive answer to what happens if you speak to her. However, death or an eternal haunting, these are very much on the table. Once she enters and you don't speak to her, press the 1st floor. If you descend to the 1st floor, get out of the elevator and don't look back. You weren't accepted into the other world. If the elevator starts to go up when you press the 1st floor though, then congratulations, you just made it into the demon realm. The elevator will rise to floor 10, and when the doors open, you will find yourself staring out at a very different version of the 10th floor. From my understanding, it looks very similar to the other side in the popular sci-fi television show Stranger Things. The lights will be out, darkness will flood the space. Apparently some people have reported seeing a red cross if you look out the windows. If you want to get back, then just repeat the steps that you did to get there and you should make it back home. Now this could all just be an elaborate prank to get people to hop in an elevator and waste their entire day by going up and down floors. Because if somebody hops in the elevator, then you have to stop and do it all over again. However, in 2013, a Canadian student died in an elevator, and when people watched back the footage, she was acting very strangely in the elevator prior to dying, almost as if she was being possessed. None of these rituals are an exact science, and anytime you attempt to go to another world, expect there to be some potential consequences. Number 2 on this list is the 3 Kings. The 3 Kings is a ritual that should transport one person to an unknown dimension where they may get clarity on their past or future. Now for this ritual, you're gonna need a lot of things to make it work. A room without any outside light at all, a candle, a bucket of water, 2 sizable mirrors, an alarm clock, 3 chairs, a cell phone, and a friend that you trust. Yeah, I know, it's a lot of stuff. At around 11 at night, start setting up your ritual. Set up the chair in the middle of your room facing north and put the other 2 chairs next to it facing the same way. Take your mirrors and put them sitting in the chairs facing outwards. Have the bucket of water close by your chair. Now once all of this is done, it's time for you to go to sleep. Sleep until 3:30 a.m. in the morning. You must wake up precisely at that time and then head over to that room. Close the door and sit in the middle chair with your candle now lit. You should have your friend waiting outside of the door of the room that you're in. Now if all of this has been done correctly, this is when you should start to hear some voices. They'll be coming from the mirrors on either side of you, but it's very important that you do not look at these mirrors or make eye contact with whomever is speaking. You just have to keep staring ahead and try to stay calm. One of these voices will be the fool and one will be the queen. You in this scenario are the king. Being the king, you are allowed to ask questions that you would like to be answered. One of these beings will answer the questions. The problem is that you're never going to know who is who. The queen will tell you the truth, whereas the fool will lie to you. Not knowing who is who and having no way to find out makes it very difficult to discern the truth to these questions. Sometimes they may even respond to your question with one of their own, in which case you're obligated to reply. You will be able to speak to these beings for 1 hour, and right as that hour is up, your friend on the outside needs to get your attention. They should knock first, then try to call you. If you haven't responded to either of those, they need to come inside and throw the bucket of water on you. You may not respond to any of these initially because it's said that this ritual can bring you into a very deep trance. A trance that makes that hour you're sitting there feel like an eternity. An entire lifetime where you're stuck in your own mind sitting in that chair. Considering you don't even know if these answers are true or not, the risk is just not worth the reward for this ritual. Number 1 on this list is the corner game. This may be classified as a game, however it is basically a summoning ritual to bring a demon or ghostly spirit to our world. You can't perform this one on your own. You're going to need to have 4 people in total if you want to do this. You're also going to need access to a house without anything living in it other than you and your 3 friends. Turn off all the lights in your building or your home except for the ones in the room that you've chosen to perform the ritual. This room that you've chosen to do your ritual in, it has to have exactly 4 corners. Can't have any more, can't have any less. Head into your room and speak your name 3 times as you enter. Now before you enter the room, you'll have chosen a speaker. From here on out, after you've said your names, they are the only person that's allowed to say anything. Once you're inside and you've all repeated your names, close the door and turn off the lights. Everyone has to go to a corner of their choosing now and face into it with their backs to the center of the room. The speaker will then count to 3, and after they have done so, everyone has to move to the next corner of the room in a clockwise direction without looking at the center of the room. Do this exactly 4 times so that you end up in the same corner that you started in. Once this is completed, you will feel the presence of a figure in the center of the room. This is the demon or ghostly spirit that you've just summoned. Now what's kind of ridiculous about this is that you've just summoned this being, but you're not actually allowed to turn around and look at it. You have to remain with your back to the wall and just feel its presence. After you've had enough, you need to do the completion procedure, which is where everyone says their full name backwards 3 times, and then one by one, exit the room hoping that the being doesn't follow you or isn't still there. People trying this game have reported having one of their members disappear and not being able to get them back. People have also said that sometimes the room is now forever haunted by this thing that you just summoned. Either way, I would never do this because you literally can't even see the demon that you just brought here. You go through all of this trouble, risk your life, to just stand with your back to the room, staring at a corner. Not really my idea of a good time.
Number 5 on this list is the Red Book Ritual, or also called the Game of the Red Book. This is another one of our classic rituals where we're going to be contacting a spirit to answer questions and potentially tell us the future. The ritual originated in Mexico and has been part of local Mexican lore for years. As we've seen throughout this series of demonic rituals you should never perform, whenever you contact a spirit, whatever the method, there are consequences. The Game of the Red Book is no different. To perform this ritual, you'll need a red hardcover book that you've never read with no pictures in it. At least 1 candle to light whatever room you choose to perform your ritual, and at least 1 other person to perform that ritual with. Head into your room with your partner or group of people that you're going to be doing this with and sit either across from one another or in a circle surrounding the book. Light your candle and have it be the only light in the room. Whoever wants to go first, grab the book, place your palm on the cover of it and say, "Red Book, can I enter your game?" Then, with your eyes closed, flip to a part of the book and put your finger on that page. Open your eyes and read the sentence. If this is a positive sentence, something you'll need to interpret, then you can play the game. If it's a negative sentence, then you're either not permitted to play or you're going to need to try again. Assuming that it's positive, you can now ask a different question to the red book. Repeat the process that you just did, and the spirit on the other side should guide your finger to a sentence in the book that will answer your question. This ritual doesn't seem too dangerous, however there have been stories of people going missing after this game, or the red book not allowing you to stop playing the game, and if you try to leave, bringing on dire consequences. Number 4 on this list is the picture game. This is a demonic ritual where the goal is to capture a ghost or a demon on camera. For this to work, you're going to need a wide array of unique items. Some string long enough to make a circle out of it, scissors, a small mirror for you and every person who intends to partake in this ritual, a camera with a flash, but it can't be a phone, it's got to be an actual camera, a glass to drink out of, some wine, and a quiet room. Once you have all of these things in place, you and the others doing this will want to start at midnight. Tie your string into a circle and place it in the center of your room. Put your glass in the center of it and fill it with the wine that you brought. Have everybody sit around the circle and place your mirror in front of yourself facing up towards the ceiling. Now that you're in position, grab each other's hands and go around the circle one by one saying, "I trust you." After you've done this once, you can grab your camera. Now one by one, take that camera and point it into the middle of the circle and say, "I caught you," right as you take a picture. The entire group should do this individually 3 times so that everybody is taken 3 pictures. Don't look at the pictures after you've taken them, just keep going around the circle. Now after everybody's done this 3 times, you once again need to go down the circle and say, it's time to go home. Once everybody's done this, grab your scissors and cut open the string circle. Take the wine outside and dump it onto a patch of earth. This action ultimately ends the ritual. When everything is done, you can look at your pictures now, and it's said that if you're lucky, you will have caught a ghost or a demon in one or a few of them. All of this seems pretty tame, but there are some risks involved, of course. During the process of the ceremony, there have been reports of people in the circle getting hysterical. So much so that they start crying and losing their minds as if they've been taken over by someone else. This can be excruciatingly painful as well, with reports of people clawing themselves until they start to bleed. If you do manage to get through the ritual without a hitch, then you could come out with a cool photo, but it may not be worth it. Number 3 on this list is the Ouija board. I haven't put the Ouija board on a previous list yet because I imagine you're all decently familiar with it, but considering we're on part 4, I think it's time to bring it up. The Ouija board was patented in 1891 and has been a staple in ghost stories for the 125 years that it's been in existence. The Ouija board, or the spirit board as some like to call it, has been paraded as a tool that can be used to contact the dead and speak with spirits. This board was initially made by Hasbro as a toy for kids, but many people nowadays associate it with the work of the devil. Using a Ouija board is quite simple, honestly. The board is typically structured where it has the words yes and no in the top corners. It has the words goodbye at the bottom of the board, and in the middle of it there's the entire alphabet along with the numbers 0 through 9. The board will also come with a planchette, and this is what you'll be using to spell out the answers to your questions. Get at least one other friend and place your hands on this device. Then begin asking simple questions to the board. You'll notice that the board will begin to respond and the planchette will start to move, even though you'll not be initiating the movement yourself. If this does happen, then you have now contacted a demon or a spirit. The problem with this board is that many people try and contact specific individuals, and it truly isn't that simple. A Ouija board is really like a scary dice roll. You may get lucky and contact the spirit of your grandmother who had passed, or you may get unlucky and contact a demon. The amount of stories associated with a Ouija board where things have gone wrong is truly endless. In fact, I made an entire video about it on this channel, top 5 scary demonic messages from a Ouija board. If you want to hear specifics on how crazy this thing can get, then definitely go and check that out. But my recommendation in that video and in this one is to never use one yourself. Number 2 on this list is the Dream of the Dead. The Dream of the Dead is a ritual performed by yourself as a means to hear what the dead have to say. This ritual is a little sneaky. It can only be performed on Halloween, so if you want to do it, then you're going to have to wait a whole nother year to try. To do this, you'll need 4 candles and something to light them with. Salt, an alarm clock, a picture of the person you want to connect with, and a safe place to sleep. You'll want to start setting up your room at around 9 p.m. on Halloween night. Clear the room of any electronics and make space on the floor. Spread your salt in a circle on the ground of the area you want to sleep. If you're sleeping in a bed, then make the circle around the bed. Place the picture you have beneath the pillow that you're going to use. Light your candles in a separate part of the room in a rectangle big enough for you to sit inside. Now that everything is set, you can begin. Go to your rectangle of candles and place yourself inside of it. Close your eyes and think about a group of people that are dead that are now surrounding you. Think about this image and say the words, "On this night of nights, I call the gatekeeper, divider of the realm of the living and the dead, and I demand communion with the peaceful dead." Now, go to your bed and sleep. Once you fall asleep, you should see the person whose picture is beneath your pillow. They will appear in your dream and speak to you. Don't speak back, just listen to what they have to say. The problem with this ritual is that sometimes it isn't that person who you intended, kind of similarly to the Ouija board. People have also reported feeling trapped in this dream, like it's never ending and their whole lives are being spent in this dream, or at least that's what it feels like to them. I think hearing from the dead could be cool, but I personally would not want to risk a harrowing experience with a demon in my dreams. Number 1 on this list is Sarita. Sarita is a ritual that originated in Spain and is used as a method of gaining information from a dead spirit. Whomst Sarita is is somewhat up in the air. Now, some people believe that Sarita is one person and that she's the daughter of Lucifer. Others believe that Sarah and Sarita are two different people, sisters that were brutally murdered and now play this game with the living. Whether it be the daughter of Lucifer or two dead girls, you will be dealing with demon spirits, and that can always go wrong. To perform this ritual, you're gonna need one other friend. You also need 2 standard coins. Now, do not try to rig the coins so they're weighted, or you'll be killed. You and your friend can start at any time of the day. You just need to sit on the ground of whatever area you've chosen and say in unison, Sarita, may I enter your game. Then, simultaneously, flip your coins. If both land heads up, then you can continue going. If both land tails up, then you stop immediately and do not proceed. If one is heads and one is tails, then it's said that you can continue, but do so with caution. Assuming you got both heads up, then proceed by asking Sarita some yes or no questions. You need to go one by one, and you should never speak over yourselves. Ask her a yes or no question, and then both flip your coins. The same logic follows as before. Heads is a yes, tails are a no, and if they differ, then it's a maybe. When you've had enough, you must ask Sarita, may I leave your game? Then flip your coins and continue to ask this question until you get heads. Leaving early, that's a big no-no, so don't do that. The ritual here isn't too dangerous, but it's what has happened after this ritual. People have reported getting haunted by some sort of demon figure following this game, or hearing voices in their heads that won't go away. Sarita, whoever it is assuredly a demon.
Number 5 on this list is the ritual to the other side. This is a ritual performed to let you experience a little bit of the demon world. Now, unlike some of the other demonic rituals on this list, it's relatively tame, and your life, it's not going to be at stake. However, the mental strain that it can have on you can be extremely costing. You're going to need a sizable mirror, enough that you can put both of your hands flat on it while still seeing your upper body, a completely pitch black room with absolutely no light whatsoever, a singular candle, but one that isn't too large and won't illuminate the whole room, just something where you can see yourself. Also, an alarm and somewhere to sleep. Now, after you have your items, go take a nap. You want to set your alarm for roughly 2 hours of sleep so that when you wake up, you are decently dazed and not fully aware. Right when you wake up, go to your room with your mirror and make it pitch black. Then light your candle and have it somewhere out of sight, just enough light that you can make out your face in the mirror. You want to place both hands on the mirror roughly shoulder width apart and start to stare at yourself. Focus on yourself. Your focus needs to be impeccable if you want this to work. Now start to alter your breathing. A slow breathe in and a longer exhale. You want your mind and your body to go completely blank and feel as if they're exiting your body. If you're doing all of this properly, then you should start to feel subtle vibrations in your hands that ring throughout your arms. This should be followed by your face starting to distort as if you were hallucinating. Now is when the real images start though. People have reported seeing flashes of loved ones who have died where they're supposed to be standing in the mirror, or have their own bodies start to morph into a demon. Sounds and voices will begin to ring throughout the supposedly silent room, and in extreme cases, your entire room will morph itself into a fiery hell. You've now calmed your mind to a state where it is capable of comprehending the demon realm, and you are in it. Now, it's relatively easy to snap out of this place and no harm will come to you, but that's not the case for some people. This experience can be extremely jarring and haunt people for the rest of their lives. In very rare cases, people who have tried this have descended into a deep depression or even madness. I can only imagine that knowing what is on the other side and what could be potentially waiting for us is a very scary place to be. Sometimes, guys, ignorance truly is bliss. Number 4 on this list is a game called the Devil's Game. In this ritual, you will basically be summoning the devil, and summoning the devil can be extremely dangerous. To perform the Devil's Game, you will need a few items. A can of salt, 7 candles, red or white is preferred, a lighter or match to light those candles, some red string, it could be rope or yarn if that's what you have, but the color has to be red. You'll also need a full-length mirror. Mirrors are pretty common in these rituals, by the way. And lastly, this must be done in a church, and it must be done at midnight when you do it. Also, you are not allowed to have anything electronic or any religious paraphernalia that may help you, like holy water. Now take your salt and surround the mirror on the ground. Then wrap your mirror with the red string. Take your candles and light them and space them out around the mirror as well. All of these things are actually to help protect you from the devil. The summoning you still have to do. To summon the devil, you actually have to do something sacrilegious in the church. This could be anything, but I think the easiest would be some sort of vandalism. Do that and then close all the doors to the room and kill the lights so that you're only lit by the candles. Close your eyes now and count to 10 with the distinct image of the devil in your mind. After you reach 10, open them. You should be staring directly at the devil in the mirror in place of yourself. Now, the devil didn't come all of this way just to look at you. He wants to play, and the game is a simple question and answer game. If you get something right, he'll answer your questions truthfully, but it's not that easy. This is the devil, and the questions that he asks will be specifically made to stump you. In fact, the questions that he asks will be ones that you're never 100% sure that you know the answer to, and therefore you can never be 100% sure if he is telling the truth to you or a lie when he answers your questions. So when you ask him, "How am I gonna die?" and he answers with, "You're gonna get hit by a bus," is that the truth? Or is that a lie? You're never gonna know, and for the rest of your life, you will most likely be petrified of buses. Occasionally, he will also dare you to do something. Now, this is interesting because if you complete the dare, you will know for certain that the next thing you ask him will be true. If you do the dare, you could ask him next week's winning lottery numbers and he'd have to tell you the truth. But the dare he gives you, it's not gonna be pleasant. Self-harm, hurting those that you love, completely going against any morals that you thought you had, those are all completely on the table. You could stand to gain a lot from this game. However, you could also stand to lose a lot or gain absolutely nothing at all, just a bunch of paranoia. Anytime you summon the devil, it's a bad idea, and the devil's game is no different. Number 3 on this list is Veronica's game. Now, Veronica's game is a demonic ritual that will summon Veronica, a demon girl who died playing a very similar game many years ago. To get this demon's attention, you will need a few items. A mirror, again, a clock, a quiet room, a candle. This ritual will also require you to perform it at midnight, just like the other ones. Have the mirror set up in your quiet room so that it's at eye level with you. At exactly midnight, light the candle and stare into the mirror. Veronica. Veronica. You have to repeat her name 9 times, staring at yourself in the mirror. After you have done so, extinguish the candle and leave the room. Now, why is this called a game? I don't really understand, because there's really nothing fun about it at all. She's with you now. The demon Veronica is now there with you, and whenever you are by yourself, you will feel her presence. You have just awoken a demon who doesn't want to be awake right now, and she's going to haunt you. You'll feel the temperature start to drop whenever you're by yourself. You may hear sounds that you can't identify or sense movement that you don't understand. It's said that if you ever make fun of Veronica in any way, then that's going to be the last thing that you do. This demon supposedly carries around a pair of scissors at all times and will use them on you if she ever feels that you're taunting her. This demonic ritual should absolutely never be performed because you stand absolutely nothing to gain and potentially your life to lose. Number 2 on this list is a ritual performed by a bunch of high school students in 1986. Now, this ritual has less to do about the otherworldly things that you may summon and more to do with the fact that this is just wrong and you shouldn't ever do this. 12 high school students were linked to a demonic ritual with the goal of praising Satan and cleansing the world of what Satan or these students may qualify as unworthy. These students had found an abandoned house that they painted black and used that as their main base of operations. They painted it black as apparently a way of keeping the badness in and the goodness out. It was here that they had been performing several demonic rituals for months. One of their rituals, though, culminated on the witch's Sabbath. They had been preparing for this day for quite a while, drawing blood circles in their abandoned home, and speaking various incantations to please their devilish lord. The final act, though, involved a sacrifice. On the witch's Sabbath, one of the 12 high school students, a 15-year-old, snuck into an older student's bedroom with a shotgun and used him for the sacrifice. Yeah, this entry gets kinda real. This was their demonic sacrifice meant to appease the devil. Now, I can't say for certain whether the actual ritual worked because there's currently no knowledge on that. But what I do know is that the 15-year-old and those involved went to jail for a very long period of time. I also know that a 17-year-old boy who had absolutely nothing to do with anything died. Like I said, this one on the list is less about what you may summon and the consequences with that, but more about the fact that you should just never do this. And the fact that people thought this was a good idea, it's just complete insanity. Number 1 on this list is a ritual performed by 2 high school students, Mike and Sid. Now, although Mike and Sid kind of sounds like a great name for a sitcom or like a really good cop show, these guys get a little bit darker than that. Longtime high school friends and big fans of the horror movie genre in general, one evening they stumble upon a ritual on a deep part of the internet. The goal is to summon a demon. Even though the boys have a deep respect for demons and don't want to mess around, it's promised online that this demon will be thankful for being summoned and won't cause you any harm. What you need for this ritual is a frog and a specific incantation in a language called Enochian. I couldn't find the specific incantation that the boys used, and frankly, I mean, it's probably a good thing that this information is difficult to locate. Grab your frog by its hind legs. This is gonna be difficult because it has to still be alive when you are doing this. Stick it directly into sunlight and begin to speak your Enochian incantation. Now, I kind of hate this next part because I love animals, but as you're speaking your hex, kill the frog. Let the blood of the frog drop to the ground. If your spell is working, then you will notice pretty rapidly that the frog itself will start to wither up and shrink. Now, it's said that this should summon a demon in front of you. However, when the boys did this, that's not what happened. Sid was watching as Mike uttered the final words to their ritual. After it was done, Mike stood there for a moment, silently, with the dead, withered up frog in his hands, until he twisted his head 180 degrees backwards and stared directly at Sid with his eyes rolled completely back in his head. Then, without warning, he lunged after Sid in a fully unnatural, inhuman way, spitting and cursing as he did. Sid dodged him and ran out of the house as fast as he could, not stopping for 10 whole minutes. After an hour of waiting and regaining his courage, he carefully made his way back to go check on his friend. Mike was lying completely naked with scratches all over his body, unconscious in the middle of the basement. When he woke up, he had absolutely no memory of the entire incident at all and doesn't know how he got there.
Coming in at number 5, we've got the Evoker. I'm going to kick off the list with my personal favorite, even if it doesn't really fit the theme that I'm going for here. It's definitely a ritual and it definitely summons demons, but it's also for a different purpose than most, as one might say awakening a persona isn't the same thing as using a ritual to bring a demon into this world. Potato, potato. Anyone familiar with Atlas games should be familiar with all the different ways of summoning demons. You can use an app, head to the TV, or fire up any number of electrical gadgets to access the demons that'll help you fight. However, one stands out above the rest. Persona 3 is well known for its striking visual style, kick-ass soundtrack, and of course, the method by which you summon demons. If you want to summon your persona, you've got to find a gun-shaped evoker, put it to your head, and pull the trigger. That's right, we're summoning demons by shooting ourselves in the head. By the way, I don't recommend using this method in real life. But in the world of Persona 3, doing so will allow you to accept your own mortality, induce terror, and summon your persona. I'd say in terms of rituals to summon demons, this is an extremely simple yet hardcore way to go about it. No summoning signs, no special materials, just a gun, your head, and your emotions. Boom. If only summoning demons was always that simple. Many folks are only able to summon one particular persona, but the protagonist in Persona 3 can use all sorts of demons to their advantage. So in this case, using an evoker can have all sorts of different demonic results. Not bad. Coming in at number 4, we've got finding a meat suit for Samhain. Plenty of demons get summoned through the many seasons of Supernatural. Some need folks to draw symbols, light candles, and recite incantations. Others require that a bowl of assorted ingredients and blood be lit on fire. Then there's the ritual to summon Samhain. This one gets really specific. First, it should be known that this demon can only be summoned once every 600 years, so be sure you've got the right calendar before starting. Most times you bring them about, you'll need a few super strong magic users. Also, it's important that whoever's going forward with this summoning ritual hides themselves from angels. Samhain is powerful enough that the celestial beings of light need to be watching at all times. Then you've got to sacrifice 3 people over the course of 3 days. Of course, the final blood sacrifice has to happen on Halloween. When else would you complete a crazy summoning ritual? Thanksgiving? Grow up. During this time, some more classic ritual stuff needs to happen. Blood is to be collected in a chalice. An old Celtic incantation is chanted. There are black candles, goat skulls, pentagrams, and special minerals. And this isn't some little piddly summon, it's a crazy one. If you get all the steps right, then the earth will crack and Samhain can arrive, taking full possession of his meat suit. Isn't that a fun phrase, a meat suit? And right back to the Halloween requirement, Samhain is the origin of Halloween. We wouldn't be celebrating the holiday without him. Of course, bringing him to life means that we'll be dealing with a few more ghosts, ghouls, and zombies than usual, but I suppose that is to be expected around Halloween. Coming in at number 3, we've got entering a basement. This just seems to happen in a lot of horror movies, huh? Some folks head on down into a creepy cellar through a hidden door, and there's an artifact waiting there for them. It might be a book, or it could be an enchanted orb. Touch it, read it, or break it, the results are all the same. Demons. Or ghosts, ghouls, and goblins, but that's kind of beside the point. It happened in The Evil Dead when the Naturam de Monto is found and a recording of incantations is played. It happened in Wishmaster when the fire opal is polished. And it happened and has happened every year for ages in the Cabin in the Woods thanks to that lovely cellar full of cursed antiquities. The best thing about these demon summoning rituals is that they're so simple, any idiot can do them. In fact, that's probably the expectation in the first place. Why bother with the planning and the learning to draw sigils and the spilling of blood when you can just crack open a book and watch the sparks fly? Plus, with this knowledge, entering any spooky basement immediately becomes step 1 in your demon summoning ritual. There's always the chance you're going to stumble across some artifact that will irrevocably alter the course of your destiny. Isn't that an exciting thought? What kind of demon would you summon from the basement? I like the idea of winding up a cursed music box and dealing with the consequences. Coming in at number 2, you can torture a family. Unlike entering a basement, torturing a family to summon a demon takes a little more finesse. You've got to know and understand the demon you're going for and ensure that the victims really don't know what's going on until the last possible moment. Take the cult in Hereditary. They had this all planned out from the start. Like, it literally took them years to put this summoning ritual together. In the end, we get a lovely saxophone wail by the one and only Colin Stetson, and Paimon finds his way into a proper male host. But how did they make it happen? We follow the Graham family for most of the flick, meaning that we're not exactly privy to the details of the ritual. Thankfully, Madeline Aguilar interviewed some witches for the cut to find out a little more. Turns out that Paimon is listed in a Solomonic grimoire, which sort of outlines what he does and how to summon him. A summoner would need to draw a magical circle around themselves and a triangle just outside of it. They've got to be wearing the correct seal and be ready to offer the demon all sorts of stuff upon arrival. Plus, there might even be some additional demon managing involved. If you remove Paimon, who was once considered a king of hell, who was going to cover for him? It's just like real life work, but more supernatural. As is the case in most situations, the movie summoning was a little different from real life summoning, but still, going behind a family's back to switch the souls of their 2 children by decapitating one and possessing the other is a pretty crazy ritual. Then there's the whole nude old people lurking in an empty house bit. That's a little less fun in my opinion, but maybe I'll understand when I get older. Finally, at number 1, we've got revenge. I haven't done any extensive canvassing to find out if this is true or not, but I feel as though revenge is a primary driving force behind plenty of demonic summons. Don't quote me on that, but consider the implications. People want a lot of things. A large automobile, a beautiful house, a beautiful wife, but not everyone's willing to put it all on the line to acquire those things. However, once someone is possessed by a need for revenge, there isn't much that will prevent them from getting it. So if they have to summon a demon and give up their future, so be it. Revenge will be served. A prime example of a revenge-fueled ritual has to be that in the movie Pumpkinhead. Poor old Ed Harley loses his son to some rowdy dirt bikers and swears he'll get them for this. There are no rituals for bringing his son back, but there are rituals for getting revenge. He learns this from the old witch Haggis, who tells him that vengeance comes at a terrible price. Ed is fine with this and uses his son's blood mixed with his own to turn a corpse into the demon known as Pumpkinhead. Thus begins a horrifying rampage fueled by blood, one that can only be stopped by completing the ritual. And the only way to do that is for the man who summoned the demon to die. Ed Harley, who summoned a demon for revenge, realizes that it wasn't the right call. He ends up taking the place of Pumpkinhead in the grave. But revenge will bring this creature back again. There's a sequel after all. Well, I hope I didn't give you folks too many bright ideas. Summoning demons is serious business. But hey, you're on the watch list now. There's no going back.
Number 5 on this list is a sad story of a husband and a wife. I was unable to learn their names, but for the purposes of this video, let's call them Anna and Tom. The story takes place back in 1935 when the pair were married and living in Texas. They were in their late 30s when their marriage started to crumble. Anna had really taken to the Ouija board that she had gotten and often went to it for advice and answers. She had suspected for quite a while that Tom had been cheating on her. She believed that the affair was ongoing and happening with their next door neighbor. She consulted her Ouija board and it confirmed these suspicions to her. After hearing this, she accosted her husband about this affair, which he vehemently denied. She didn't believe him though and kept consulting the Ouija board, and it kept giving her the same answer. Tom wouldn't budge though, and every time she asked him, he swore that he would never do that to her and the Ouija board was lying. After several weeks of this, Anna started to lose her mind. One day, while Tom was asleep, she took some wire and tied his limbs to the bedpost. He woke up naked and unable to move, his wife staring down at him with a makeshift whip. She proceeded to torture him with the whip, then a burning poker stick, and then with a kitchen knife. Finally, she grabbed the gun that Tom had and held it to his head. When she did this, he told her what she wanted to hear. That this entire time, the Ouija board had been right and that he was sleeping with the neighbor. Rather than kill him, Anna actually loosened the restraints and was relieved to have her suspicions proved right. Tom, fearing for his life though, lunged for the gun that she'd put on the nightstand and he shot her, killing Anna, his wife, where she stood. What makes this message so demonic is that Tom was never actually sleeping with the neighbor, or at least that's what he claims. The torture became far too much for him though, and he was willing to admit to anything just to try and stay alive. Clearly, a demon decided that Anna was in a vulnerable place, and this would be the perfect time to not only ruin her marriage, but also her life. Number 4 on this list is Angela Jackson. Angela was a young girl in her 20s from Australia. She became obsessed with a Ouija board to communicate with her father, who had passed away roughly 2 years ago. She was very close with her dad, and letting him go was super hard for her. Whenever she would contact him, they would have a good conversation through the board. However, her father always made it clear that this has to be the last time that she uses this board. He implored her to stop contacting him. This wasn't because he didn't want to talk to her, but simply his spirit recognized the dangers of this tool, and there may be a time where it isn't him that she connects with. Angela heard his warning, but proceeded to use it anyways. Whenever she was lonely, or something big happened in her life, or she just missed her father, she would pull it out. One day, Angela felt the urge to contact her father, and she did exactly that. She pulled out the board as she normally would, she asked some questions, except this time, it wasn't her father on the other side. The room felt cold, and the light seemed as if it was being sucked away by the shadows. The demon on the other side, it was not kind, and made its intentions known, spelling out the words, "Kill yourself." Angela wholeheartedly refused to do so after multiple requests, so finally the demon spelled out, "I will then." Petrified at this point, she threw the Ouija board in her closet and refused to touch it. She didn't want to fully throw it away though, because if she did, that would be ultimately admitting that her father's gone. She did eventually change her mind though and get rid of it about a week later, but it took a near-death experience for her to do this. She was attacked late at night by what looked to be a crazy man with an axe. He almost killed her, but she managed to get away with her life. Convinced that this was the work of the demon that she must have contacted, she threw the Ouija board away and she never looked back. Number 3 on this list is a story from a man named Steve. Now, Steve's story already starts out poor because the Ouija board that he ends up using is one that he and his friends found in a dumpster. Once they pulled it out of there, this board started working for them almost immediately. The one problem is that it was in Latin, and only one of the people there could understand what it was saying. It apparently wasn't saying anything menacing off of the top, just kind of weird and creepy things. Steve didn't like this thing at all, and he was definitely spooked, but curiosity got the better of him. He didn't truly believe that a spirit was guiding his hand and wanted to understand the logic of how it was happening. As you're all expecting, this was a poor choice by Steve, and he inevitably had to pay for it. Steve went to sleep that night at a little bit past midnight. When he woke up, it was 3 a.m. in the morning, and he was standing straight up, playing with what looked to be a drawn-on Ouija board on the wall. He couldn't control his movements. He was just watching as his body mindlessly moved around the Ouija board, spelling things out. The first thing that he saw his hand spell out was, "Why are you hurting me?" Then the next thing was, "I need your spirit." Steve was locked in to this frozen state, but he still had his mind. He says that it took every ounce of mental energy he could muster to try and break out of what felt like this demonic Ouija curse and regain control of his movements. He fell to the ground in a deep sweat, staring at what he had done in complete shock and awe. The Ouija board was dealt with right away, and it wasn't long after that Steve sold his place and moved to a completely different city. Number 2 on this list is from a woman named Tanny. A few years ago, Tanny lived in Chicago with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend, who is now her ex, had just lost a very close friend and was going through a rough time. Trying to be a supportive girlfriend and help him get through it, she thought that maybe getting a Ouija board would be a good idea. Her initial thought was to help him get a little bit of closure on the whole experience and maybe to speak to his friend one last time. Obviously, as it often happens with these boards, that isn't how the whole scenario went down. The couple set up the board in their living room and started using it like one typically would. At first they weren't feeling anything at all and just thought that this was standard. But then a chill filled the air. Both Tanny and her boyfriend felt an enormous weight hit their bodies and a deep sense of depression. This came along with a horrible sense of foreboding that something awful was about to happen. This was very strange because the board itself, it wasn't actually giving them any strange answers to the questions. That part felt as if everything was normal. Even though this strange feeling about something to come scared the pair, they kept playing with the board. It didn't take long after that for both of them to stop though. In the corner of their living room appeared a black, fleshy humanoid creature that looked as if it was one with the shadows. Tanny saw this and screamed at the top of her lungs, but when her boyfriend looked, it was completely gone. She swore that she saw something and refused to play anymore, demanding that they go to bed. It took her a very long time to fall asleep after that, but eventually she did, and that's where the message came. Dipping into this deep dream, Tanny vividly remembers how real it all felt. She claims that she has never felt a dream that seemed so close to reality like the one that she had that night. She materialized in a forest, and standing in front of her was the dark demon being that she saw in the corner of her living room earlier that night. Her heart raced, and she tried to run, but her feet were stapled to the ground. The demon glided its way closer to her, and when it was only a few feet away, said, "Your first child will suffer like his friend." Then it took its black, fleshy hand and shoved it into her stomach, stabbing her with its long fingernails. She woke immediately, feeling as if she just got stabbed and punched in the stomach all at once. She hasn't tried to have children since then, but she doesn't believe that she ever will. She is convinced that the demon was referring to her boyfriend's friend, in which case her first child would die. Something that she doesn't believe she could ever cope with. Number 1 on this list comes from a Reddit user named Jake Nichols. Jake recounts the story of how he and his cousin used a Ouija board one evening and immediately regretted it. The first thing to note about this story is that the Ouija board was found in the attic of their home when they were cleaning it out. It was an older board and looked as if it had been up there for years. Whilst they were cleaning out the attic though, they removed a few other items from there, old clothes, some furniture, other small knickknacks as well. Anyways, they opened up this Ouija board and set it down on the ground of their home to test it out. They started messing around with it and were having a pretty good time until they started to notice a pattern. It seemed as if it would only accurately respond to Jake. To test the theory, Jake asked it a question only he could possibly know the answer to. What is my social security number? The board moved from one number to the next, to the one following that. It did this 9 times to produce what was Jake's exact 9-digit social security number. Absolutely shocked, Jake and his cousin asked the spirit to show itself. Bad move though. This board slowly picked the letters D-O-L-L. Doll. Now doll, what does that mean? We asked you to show yourself and you wrote doll. And then Jake remembered. While they were cleaning out the attic, one of the knickknacks he removed was this very old doll of a girl with red hair in a little brown dress. This doll had been sitting on top of the Ouija board when they went up there. The boys rushed in the room where they put all of the knickknacks, and when they got there, standing up on its own 2 legs was that very same doll with a sick, sadistic smile across its face. Its eyes looked alive and pierced directly into Jake's soul. Then, defying all logic, the doll's mouth moved and sounds came out. "You woke me up, Jake. I was sleeping." Jake and his cousin's heart were pounding quicker than they have ever felt in their lives. The doll made one final drilling stare, and then it fell to the ground, lifeless, as if it had been there the whole time. Jake and his cousin immediately took the Ouija board and the doll and burned them outside. They both stayed in another home that night as well, fearing that whatever they released may still be on the hunt.
Coming in at number 5, we've got Elizabeth Knapp. Granted, around the time of the Salem witch trials, a lot of things may have been interpreted as demonic or paranormal when they shouldn't have been. Just take a look at all of the people accused of witchcraft for patently non-witchy things and you'll see what I'm saying. If someone weighed the same as a duck, that means she's also made of wood. And people burn wood, but people also burn witches, right? I'm getting away from the topic at hand, sorry. 20 years before the start of the Salem witch trials, there was a young woman working for Samuel Willard, a somewhat prominent reverend in Massachusetts. That girl was named Elizabeth Knapp, and she may have been possessed by a demon. A little odd considering the holy nature of the man she worked for, but that's how the story goes. One October, Elizabeth started to complain of pains all throughout her body, ones that couldn't really be explained. As time went on, these pains increased in frequency and intensity, so she went to the Reverend. She told him that she would often convulse uncontrollably and had many fits of screaming and crying for no apparent reason. It even felt like she was being strangled by an unknown, unseeable force. Needless to say, these behaviors concerned the Reverend. Eventually, Elizabeth told the Reverend that her ailments all began when she made a deal with the devil. Classic. She somehow got in touch with this underworld overlord and exchanged her soul for eternal youth and exorbitant sums of money. Once these admissions were made, things got much worse. Elizabeth would speak in a terrifying, distorted voice, and it often appeared that the devil was speaking through her. Her body would contort in such violent and grotesque ways that it took multiple people to hold her down. In addition to all of that, her throat also swole up like a balloon, which couldn't have been very comfortable. Unfortunately, nobody really knows what happened to this poor young lass. In the Reverend's journals, all sorts of demonic experiences were detailed, but he eventually conceded that he wasn't quite sure what to do with the girl. He didn't know what exactly was happening to her, but he could tell that the things going on weren't voluntary. Whatever demonic presence had overtaken Elizabeth Knapp was determined to stick around and prevent anyone else from ruining its fun. Coming in at number 4, we've got Bobby Jindal. Most of the time, American politicians don't have too many dealings with the devil. Well, not publicly anyways, it would ruin their reputation. However, this former governor of Louisiana says he found himself face to face with a demon and even wrote an article about his experience. That's gutsy for sure, especially for a guy who would eventually run for public office and win. Well, it sort of came back and bit him in the ass because he likely could have run for vice president alongside Mitt Romney. And looking back, it becomes increasingly apparent that his dealings with demons put a big hole in his VP aspirations. But enough political talk, let's get to the demon. In his article titled Beating a Demon, Physical Dimensions of Spiritual Warfare, published in the New Oxford Review, Jindal describes his attempts to exorcise a demon from his pal Susan. Poor Susan. Apparently, the undergraduate was undergoing treatment for her cancer at the time, and some of the effects made Jindal suspect there might be a demon present. He and a bunch of other Christian college students banded together to perform an impromptu exorcism. They had contacted a preacher to preside over the proceedings, but this holy man told them to hold off on the exorcism. In his article, Jindal questions whether the preacher simply did not want to come over to a college dorm, or if he was worried about the demon potentially being too powerful. In the end, the group of students went through with it, holding Susan down as best they could as she struggled and attempted to escape. Eventually, a student from a rival Christian college organization burst in with a crucifix, and this seemed to work on the demon. When they read Bible verses aloud, Susan screamed profanities and questioned the value of the religion. However, in between these supposedly demonic outbursts, Susan also showed her true face, begging to be rescued from her possessor. In the end, the demon was said to be removed, and Susan was able to return to life as normal. However, Jindal's eventual political aspirations would be cut short thanks to this demonic possession. One has to wonder what would possess him to write his experiences so plainly. Coming in at number 3, we've got Michael Taylor. This case is a peculiar one indeed. Back in the 70s, Michael Taylor was working as a butcher in West Yorkshire. He and his wife had recently joined a Christian fellowship group which Taylor took very seriously. A little too seriously perhaps, as he soon began engaging in what his wife describes as carnal relations with the leader of the fellowship group. Mary Robinson. This didn't sit well with his wife, so she called it out in front of the rest of the group's members. Most people would probably yell something rude and profane and then slink away in embarrassment, but Michael Taylor, he claimed that he'd been feeling evil inside of him and got really mad at Robinson. After this, he requested an absolution but continued to act strangely. This behavior encouraged a local vicar to seek out external help, so he brought in a couple of ministers to assist with an exorcism. This demonic expulsion went on overnight and supposedly removed over 40 demons from Taylor. However, they didn't get them all. The ministers said that 3 demons still remained inside: insanity, murder, and violence. You can probably see where this is going. After this all-night affair, Michael Taylor returned home. During his time there, he ended his wife's life and strangled their pet dog. He was found wandering the streets in a daze covered in blood. Adultery, insanity, then violence. Those must have been some serious demons. Either that or Taylor just wanted out of his marriage, but couldn't think of a better way to go about it. Coming in at number 2, we've got George Lukens, not to be confused with George Lucas. Of all the times one could get possessed by a demon, you would think that a Christmas pageant would be pretty low on the list, you know, celebrating the birth of the holiest of holy figures and all. But poor George Lukens, he couldn't catch a break. He'd been performing at his local pageant and seemed to fall over for no reason. According to Lukens, it wasn't too much eggnog that did it. It was a supernatural force that slapped him, knocking him to the ground. In the following years, Lukens developed a seemingly incurable condition that doctors couldn't explain. He could though, and he said that it was demons. Multiple presences attempting to take over his body. When doctors gave up on curing him, a priest stepped in. He performed an exorcism on Lukens, which became quite the public event. Folks from all over came to see how it was going, and many reported a very disturbing scene, including Lukens claiming that he was the devil, becoming violent, and even barking like a dog. After all this though, Lukens seemed to be cured. The priest said that he sent the demons back to hell and that Lukens was a God-loving person once more. And finally at number 1, we've got Clara Germaine Sely. If nuns are getting tossed around like rag dolls, it's time to investigate what's going on. And this is exactly the case when it comes to this South African possession. 16-year-old Clara Germaine Sely had supposedly made a pact with the devil and used her newfound abilities for evil. She made animalistic noises that chilled the bones of all who could hear them and gained supernatural strength. At one point, she even levitated off the ground, only to be brought back by splashes of holy water. Folks aren't exactly sure why she made this deal, but when a 16-year-old starts throwing nuns across the room, you don't try to get to the root of the problem, you try to stop it immediately. The exorcism was a grueling 2-day ordeal in which Clara attempted to suffocate the priest multiple times. She spoke languages she couldn't possibly have been familiar with and projected a terrifying demonic voice. Eventually, the demon was exorcised, but nobody involved would ever be the same again.
Number 5. What's outside? Our first story comes to us from a blog called Are You Bloody Mary, chronicling the stories and experiences of other wayfarers who've tried to contact her. Our blogger shared her story when she was younger. Her friend had come over for a sleepover, then they went through the usual sleepover checklist: horror movies, a little bit of gossiping about the boys, and an occult ritual. The 2 friends went upstairs to the bathroom, arranged candles, although they were fake ones. Still good enough for the ritual, I'm sure. Our narrator was the brave one and spun in circles over and over, giggling, and said the magic words. She said she wasn't feeling anything but dizzy and asked her friend if it had worked and anything had happened. Her friend said no. Disappointed, the girls were about to leave the bathroom when in the reflection of the mirror, they both saw the window that faced the backyard. As they went towards it, they noticed there was a figure standing in the backyard. Staring at them from down below, outside, was a girl with ratty black hair looking at the window. Somehow, she managed to rise to where the window was. The girl had her hands to her face and her mouth wide open, as if she was going to let out a scream, but nothing came. The girls ran outside to try and see what was happening, but when they did, the figure that was floating outside had vanished. The story writer said she didn't sleep that night or much the week after that, and although it had happened years ago, she still thinks all the time what it was they saw that day and just what could have happened. And if you're liking hearing scary stories about creatures from beyond and all sorts of things, why don't you click through on the channel, because we've got loads of stuff for you and more stuff coming every day, so toss a subscribe our way if you're feeling generous. Number 4. Shadow Person. Our next story comes to us from the subreddit r/no-sleep, which is more than appropriate for what we're talking about today. Now this next user shares her story, saying that when she was younger, she was scared of everything. Used to sleep with all the lights on or fall asleep with the TV on to comfort her and to getting to sleep. In school, the storyteller joined the summer recreation program as a way to meet and make friends. She met a girl named Rebecca, who to this day is still her best friend. Isn't that sweet? Her new friend Rebecca had told her about the legend of Bloody Mary, and to our cowardly hero it stuck with her. Said she would go home and think of Bloody Mary, think of what she would do if she was ever confronted by the demon. Eventually, non-stop worrying and anxiety started to get to her, and she decided to test her courage. Went into the bathroom, terrified, alone in the dark. Thought that if she just did it quickly, said Bloody Mary into the mirror, and got out, it would cure the fear. So she went downstairs to get a large candle and a lighter, and set the candle next to the sink, and said the magic words. She waited a few minutes, scared, shaking, but nothing happened, so she went back to her bedroom, thinking she could finally get some rest. She crawled into bed, but noted that her room was ice cold, even though it was 90 degrees outside. In her doorway was a shadowy figure. She said looking at her made her insides hurt, and she wanted to scream, but no words could come out. So she closed her eyes as tight as she could, and kept them shut the whole night. Come morning, she opened her eyes, still afraid, and there was no shadow figure standing in the doorway. So she went to the bathroom to get ready, and noticed a cut next to her eyebrow, scratches all over her stomach, and cuts on her arms. She said she did conquer her fears, but she'll never play Bloody Mary again. Number 3. Night Terrors. Our next story was shared to us by another Redditor on a similar subreddit, this one going by the handle RuneCat. RuneCat talks about when they were in school, Bloody Mary was a popular game for kids to play to try and scare each other. Classic kid stuff. A way to prove who was brave and who wasn't. RuneCat's own friend group was a little too cowardly for it, running out of the bathroom without saying it enough time, leaving the lights on, you know, baby stuff. So it became a bit of a competition, and RuneCat believed that they had something to prove as the bravest of everyone in the class. So RuneCat went home that night, and near midnight walked into the family bathroom, turned all the lights off, and stared into a mirror while their heart was racing. They said Bloody Mary 3 times, and then stood there and waited for a minute, counted out 60 seconds exactly, and then out the door and went back to bed, proud of themselves. It wasn't until they tried to drift off to sleep that things started to get weird. They said as they were sleeping they felt something on their feet, but that they didn't have any pets in the house. So RuneCat opened their eyes to see what it was. They saw something that looked like a zombie leering over the foot of the bed. A dark being with black, rotten holes over the decaying skin that was falling off the bones, and a mouth that hung open in a way that looked like it didn't know how to close it. It was here that RuneCat noticed it wasn't just one creature, but as they looked into the darkness, it was a web of them, ever expanding in the places the light couldn't touch. In the corners, in the hallways outside, everywhere. RuneCat started sobbing, screaming as loud as they could to try and wake up their parents. After all, honestly, if there was any zombie trouble in my house, I would call my mom too, first thing. And so their mom woke up and she was laughing, dismissing it as just a nightmare or something that the storyteller was imagining. But could it have been something more? A vision? Something seeping through to the other world? Number 2. An invisible protector. This was posted by a Redditor user named Timat99. The story was called "We Attempted to Summon Bloody Mary and It Worked Too Well." The story is about Timat's 2 friends when they were all younger. Timat and his 2 friends were at his friend's house and they wanted to try the ritual for themselves. They got a candle, lit it in the bathroom, and Timat's friend said Bloody Mary into the mirror, only he did it 5 times, which is 2 times too many, which could have ended up being their downfall. Bloody Mary gets pretty annoyed when you don't follow the rules. His friend started gasping for air, grabbing at his neck as if he was choking. They switched the lights on thinking it was just a prank, but noticed that their friend had fallen to the floor and was choking. Timat said he knew here what they'd done was a mistake. His other friend was trying to help the one choking, while Timat screamed out, "Stop, Bloody Mary," commandingly, and it seemed to work, as his choking friend was finally able to breathe. And Timat claims he saw the apparition of a shadowy girl in a bloody dress in the room with them in the mirror. Now where things get interesting, if that wasn't enough to pique you, is Timat claims that since this event, his life has been changed, as if he has a protector. The most outright encounter being, while walking to college one day, he was about to cross the road when a car came racing by at a breakneck speed. He felt something tug on the back of his shirt and looked back to see who was his savior, but no one was around. He whispered out, "Mary," and heard a giggle. And number 1, Lonely Mary. Alright, and at our number 1 spot is a variation of the bloody legend that I guarantee you haven't heard yet. Our story consists of 2 friends, one named Jack, and one who preferred to be anonymous, and maybe you'll understand why in a minute. The 2 friends were hanging out on a regular Tuesday when they decided for a bit of nostalgic fun they'd play an old school game and summon Bloody Mary following a guide they followed online. He posted the guide and I'll share it with you because it's pretty interesting. Step 1. Have a mate assist you. Gather your supplies, your candles, a flashlight, and red dye. Lock the door of the bathroom. Step 2. Light the candles and with the thick red dye, pour it over your hands. Make 4 dots on the corner of the mirror. Step 3. Wipe the dye off of your hands and now put a towel over your eyes. Step 4. Say, I wish to speak with the fallen queen, queen of fallen blood, queen of hatred, and take the cloth off your head. And finally, step 5. Don't yell or panic. Keep calm. From here, he claims he saw a figure in the mirror with hollowed eyes and sunken cheeks. He tried to remember the rules and stayed calm and said, hey, how's it going? Which is what I would say too if I summoned a demon, to be totally honest. She said nothing back and then said she was cold. So cold. Thinking like a gentleman, our hero took his jacket off to offer it to Bloody Mary. What an absolute sweetheart. He said he saw the figure begin unbuttoning her dress before he started to blush. He looked closer at her and Lord knows what was running through his head. Kissed the mirror, burning himself on the candle in the process. He swatted out the candle and looked at the now angry looking entity and said, I need to depart, your highness, followed by a shrill shriek that sounded like it was from another world. That night, while sleeping, he woke up in the middle of the night and felt a weight on his arm. It was sore and the skin was all red and blotchy, far more than a small burn from a candle would have made. He ends his story saying he thinks Bloody Mary isn't just cold, but lonely.
In 5th place, we have a North American ritual. While I'm about to talk about rituals in detail, I've left out some steps for safety reasons. If you decide to try and use the rituals, please let me know in the comments what happens. I do not recommend trying to open a portal, especially in our current climate. Seriously, as a Canadian, I've choked on enough forest fire smoke this year. But since this is what y'all want, allow me to begin. For starters, in order to open a powerful portal to hell, it's vital to work in a group, which should be made up of multiple powerful magicians channeling their collective energies into the creation of the portal. The more powerful the summoners there are in a group, the greater the results. Now, the power of the group will also determine how long the portal can remain active, since longer lasting portals allow more demonic forces to enter our plane of reality. Secondly, one must find a suitable area for performing the ritual, ideally in a rural location. The area should be quiet and desolate, free of distractions or unnatural channels of energy. Rooms that are surrounded by nature are the best setting, since it's quite helpful to have a frame for the portal. There are also energy centers from ancient times scattered across the globe that can provide a, tenfold or more of magical energy than a group would be able to manifest on its own. I'm not giving examples there, that's where you've got to do your own research. Next up, the connection between spiritual planes of reality and our own is the most sensitive at 3 a.m. The line between spirit and matter overlaps at this hour, thus making us more aware of the spiritual forces which we'd otherwise not come in contact with. I hope you're a night owl, because I am certainly not these days. One must dress also appropriately for the summoning. While there's no high school level dress code, clothing worn should be simple, uniform, and if you own a dark or red magician's robe, that would be ideal. All folks involved should be dressed the same, but there are 2 variations where 2 exceptions are accepted. The first of the 2 exceptions in regards to colors may be the 1 or 2 magicians who plan on entering the portal. The other exception may be the leader of the group, who will also light the fire. Alrighty, now that that's out of the way, it's time to start the ritual. Pretty simple, just pour gasoline or another flammable concoction on the ground. If you're creating a new portal, you'll have to trace the outline of the area, but if the portal is already clearly marked, a straight line from side to side will do. Afterwards, time to surround the portal and begin to chant. Conjuro potentiae Lucifer, patefacio a porta ad inferos, et tua diamond transire, sic urantar mundi. I promise, I got through that without stumbling. As the 30th repetition approaches, have the leader of the group approach the portal and light the fire. On the 60th repetition, all the magicians should kneel on one knee, hands stretched, palms facing the flames from a safe distance, with energy from the hands directed at the flames. Repeat the chant for 30 more repetitions in that position. I couldn't. My knees absolutely could not. But on the 90th repetition, either the flame will soar higher and spirits visible to all or some members of the group will jump out of the flames, or another supernatural occurrence will be felt. If one of the members of the group feels summoned to enter the portal at this point, it can be done while the remaining magicians are channeling their energy into it. So the remaining magicians should remain in the kneeling position described previously, while 1 or 2 people at most pass through the portal. It's vital that the portal remains open so that the traveler or travelers have an exit. Don't wander off too much, because if your partner's concentration begins to falter, you could remain trapped forever in a state of doom and frenzy. Good luck on that front! In 4th place, we have the Cave of Cybele. Naples, Italy is home to a gateway to hell called the Cave of Cybele, which was described by Virgil over 2,000 years ago in the Aeneid. If I'm quoting directly, the gates of hell are open night and day, smooth the descent and easy is the way. According to the poet, the Trojan hero of the same name met the oracle Cybele here, and she guided him through the cave into hell. In 1932, after centuries of searching, explorers finally uncovered this entrance to the netherworld. Now today, visitors to the Cumae archaeological site can go inside Cybele's cave and walk through her coffin-shaped rock-cut passageways. Okay, before someone asks about the ritual enacted, that was done privately by the prophetess, and I felt like since she left the portal behind, it deserved a spot on today's list. Partially because I wanted to emphasize that portals have been enacted since the beginning of time, and hey, if you need a portal, I'm not saying you should go here, but this place could have some strong energy for it. Don't do it, but if you are. In 3rd place, we have a ritual for summoning Satan. Once again, I'll be leaving elements out of this description. While I can't control what y'all do, I don't want any apocalyptic chaos on my conscience. My life is plenty exhausting enough without having that on its plate. This particular ritual comes from the Grimorium Verum, published by Jake Stratton Kent in 2009. So firstly, the magician must forge a pact with the demon that does the call dialing itself, a sort of psychopompic spirit called the CERN, whose sigil must be inscribed alongside the operant's initials at the outset of the process onto a ruby or correspondent precious stone. Ooh, I love rubies. So this amulet is to be worn inside the magician's breast pocket or on a necklace at all times. Essential to operating the Verum is a calendrical convention drawn from Hermetic astrology that utilizes both the planetary hours and assigns a spirit to each particular day of the week. So this dictates that the construction of most of the tools for the ritual are to be done at dawn over the course of a few weeks during a time when the moon is waxing. So unlike the ritual I kicked off today with, this one is much more time consuming. The actual ritual of summoning must be done at an appointed time, depending on the properties of the demon. So to compel the dark host, the magician must cut a branch at dawn from both a virgin elder tree on the day of Astaroth and hazelwood on the day of Surgat, inscribing upon them the seals of the demons Fremost and Klepot, to be fashioned into wands of evocation and divination, respectively. Similarly, the materials for the signing of the pact are to be purified and consecrated at dawn, also on the day of Astaroth. The Verum conveniently includes instructions for the consecration of a ritual stabby implement intended to sacrifice a goat, as well as its scanning, scraping, stretching, and curing into parchment upon which the demon sigil will be copied. The writing of the contract on the parchment, including the copying of the sigil of CERN, the demon seals, and the drafting of all legal agreements, is to be done at dawn on the day of Beelzebub. Special herbs and incense are then used to immerse the magician in a sensory tradition. A mixture of mace, frankincense, and aloe wood is burned in a censer upon the altar at the ceremony and used to fumigate all tools for the operation. For purity, the magician must anoint themselves and their tools in a sprinkling of holy water mixed with mint, marjoram, and rosemary that is bound by a thread spun by a maiden. The setting of the ceremony demands a magic circle that should be roughly 9 feet in diameter and must be drawn with a stabby implement, consecrated at dawn on the day of Silkard, and drenched in red mole fluid and juice of pimpernel. Within the circle's center, the magician is to draw the triangle of evocation, upon which is set the ceremonial altar. The ritual itself prescribes a rite of sanctification, using the wand to mimic alternating flail lashes, and a recitation of personal exhortations. Then, after a series of prayers used to elevate the operant's magical authority, the spirit is to be called forth. After chanting an incantation of barbarous names, the demons must be summoned in top-down hierarchy order. First petitioning one of the unholy trinity of Lucifer, Astaroth, and Beelzebub, then calling upon one of their 7 dukes, and then finally the demon further down the hierarchy which you wish to actually summon. Following an exhausting hours-long rite, the desired demon is believed to appear, either as a presence or as a vision in a mirror. So from here, the magician might sign a pact with the particular demon, and the rest depends on what is needed. And how you treat the demon. They're pretty dang tricky beings. In second place, we have Houska Castle. Located north of Prague, Houska Castle is a 13th century Gothic masterpiece that sits on top of Hell's Gate. Aesthetically speaking alone, I would love to visit it someday. According to local lore, the castle's chapel was built to cover an enormous hole in the ground that served as a satanic threshold. So I haven't been able to find the specifics on the rituals used to open the portal, but it was too important to leave off today's list. The defensive walls also prevented demons and other ghastly creatures from crawling out of the hellhole. Animal-human hybrids were reported to have crawled out of it, and dark-winged, otherworldly creatures flew in its vicinity. Legend has it that when construction began in the castle, all the prisoners that were sentenced to death were offered a pardon if they consented to be lowered by rope into the hole and report back on what they saw. So when the first person was lowered, he began screaming after a few seconds, and when pulled back to the surface, he looked as if he had aged 30 years. He had grown wrinkles and his hair had turned white. Ugh. May I recommend trying to find a modern-day Buffy? She'd be anyone's best bet for closing a hellmouth. During World War II, the bad German guys occupied the castle until 1945. The Yahtzees were said to have conducted experiments and summonings into the occult. According to one source, locals were certain that they had been using the powers of hell for their experiments. So Houska Castle is still considered haunted, and many tourists have reported seeing headless horses and demonic winged beasts lurking in the halls. And finally, in first place, we have the Ouija board recovered from the Donovan household. Yep, Ouija boards count as demonic rituals. I repeat, as always, leave the stupid things in the store or wherever you found them. Not worth it. Patty Donovan was simply a lonely teenager who thought the board could find her a friend, and well, it found her a manipulator. She spent months falling in love with a spirit she believed to be in love with her, telling it secrets about her everyday life, becoming emotionally dependent on the spirit. So on the evening of March 2nd, 1974, Patty pleaded for the spirit to manifest. Yeah, the next morning, her father, Theodore Donovan, found the spark plug wires pulled out, the rubber hose unfastened, and the fan belt cut when he attempted to start his car. Not much later, Patty attempted to start her car, and it was discovered that the internal engine had been completely disassembled. That week, other incidents of apparent vandalism occurred around the Donovan house, and Patty could no longer raise her invisible boyfriend on the Ouija board. Night after night, she tried to communicate, but the planchette would simply slide over to goodbye. She had no idea that her ethereal boyfriend had actually manifested in the form of a supernatural vandal. By the second week of March, material damage to the house and cars had become so troublesome that Ted complained to the police. When they arrived, he pointed out the destruction done to garden plants and shrubs, the exterior of the house, and the apparent intrusion into a locked garage to puncture tires and tear engines apart. Before leaving, the policeman assured Ted that they'd keep an eye on the property during night patrols. Later that second week, after work, Ted and his wife Ellen were sitting in the kitchen with their son Brian when all three heard something smash against a wall somewhere inside the house. And after investigating, they found a gaping 18-inch hole in the plasterboard wall inside Brian's room. Just as upsetting was the fact that the jagged edges of the plasterboard were pointing inwards, with the blow coming from inside the walls. The house was further plagued by loud noises every night that only escalated in frequency and volume, along with further unexplainable damage to the walls. On April 1st, furniture began to levitate, with a 250-pound dresser flinging its contents while flying erratically. Rocks had also begun to rain from the sky, pelting only the Donovan house, which the police bore witness to. Ted eventually broke down at work and explained the horror of his home to his supervisor, who urged him to reach out to our favorite people, Ed and Lorraine Warren. So Ted instead tried moving his family into a hotel first, and the spirits followed the family there, destroying the room and making so much noise that the family was thrown out of the hotel and forced to return home. Finally contacting the Warrens, they arrived in Maine as quickly as they were able to, and oh my goodness. Lorraine said nothing, although at the time she sensed in the home the presence of entities so numerous and threatening that she had to fight with herself to keep from going back outside. After a lengthy tour of the house, Ed and Lorraine conducted an interview with the entire family, where Patty's history with the Ouija board was revealed. The Warrens then contacted the Catholic Church to begin the process for an exorcism to be granted, which sadly took about a month. The family experienced many more unexplainable horrors during that time. After the exorcism took place on May 2nd, the family was finally free of the demonic torment, but left with over $5,000 in damages, which would be over $30,000 in today's money.